training in using a miniature camera to photograph documents, those are things that you accepted as legitimate until 1990, 1991?
I don't know if the word legitimate conveys it properly. I knew that it was part of this underground activity Kurt and his family were involved in. I knew that it was clandestine. I knew that it was something we were supposed to keep hidden. I don't know that I'm not sure that I really, deeply, fully, completely appreciated the illegality until somewhat later. They made it sound like, for instance, that they had done this during the war, right? That this was a way of communicating that they had during the underground in the 30s and things like that. So it was, it's ludicrous, but it was, I think, somewhat unclear to me, but it became clear to me, certainly.
Connecting with the training that we talked about,
I'm sorry, Mr. Perry, I lost the first part of your question.
Sorry. How's this? Better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. In connection with the training that we talked about, part of what the HVA did was reimburse you for travel, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So at least some of those trips where you traveled overseas were in connection with receiving training from the HVA.
Yes, seeing them and then receiving training as we saw them. Yes.
Okay. So just to be clear, that the training took place overseas?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to kind of take us back in the timeline and start. I'm going to start around your undergraduate studies. Am I right? You met your husband towards the end of undergraduate, correct?
January 78, yeah, and I graduated I filled my BA was that May, so yeah, I met him in January 1978.
Okay. And so at the time that you met him, he was already an agent for the HVA, correct?
That's what it says. I don't know at that point what he had agreed, or I don't know firsthand what he had agreed to do or not agreed to do at that point. I knew, we became more serious about each other, and eventually he started to indicate things to me. I would say, within a year, I had some idea.
Within a year, you had some idea that he was an agent of the HVA?
That he was involved in some kind of underground secret work that was super duper important and highly relevant. And I mean, I can't say that they came out and said, this is illegal work I'm doing and I'm an agent for the HVA overtly to me in 1978 or 79. It just wasn't presented that way to me initially by him or his parents.
Well, so leaving aside the specific reference to the HVA, you were aware of his involvement in, I think you phrased it, underground secret work.
Yes, within, I don't know, a year or so of meeting him.
And you understood that part of that work was clandestine communication with a foreign country.
Yes, I think that's accurate.
And you understood that a part, is it correct? You understood that a part of that, the purpose of that clandestine communication was to hide it from U.S. authorities?
To hide it from the world, but yes, including U.S. authorities, yes.
After you graduated undergraduate, and I believe I'm in 1978 now. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay. you obtained a master's in history?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And let me, was it around this time that Mr. Stand, did Mr. Stand recruit you at that point?
I think that's how it could be, you know, certainly that's how it has been characterized. It's accurate. I mean, he introduced me to these people, introduced me to the concept. Yes. 79.
And your travel came up a lot at trial.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I can go to Disciplinary Counsel Exhibit 18. Do you recognize this document?
I think it's a summary chart of the various trips attributed to us from, I don't know, the 70s and 80s, maybe into the 90s.
And do you have any doubt that this is accurate about as to trips that you took?
In 1979, I didn't go to East Germany, and I didn't meet Lothar. I met him in 1981. I met another man from East Germany in Paris in 1979. Just, I don't know what difference it makes, but lots of things, you know, details and this and that get lost in the shuffle.
Oh, okay, so in 1979, one of the things that I want to address is it looks like your first trip, at least as represented here, was 1979. Does that seem accurate?
Yes, although again, I'm reasonably confident I didn't go to East Germany at that year. I think I went 2 years later.
Okay. And that first trip in 79, is it fair to say that that coincides with Mr. Stan recruiting you?
Yes.
And I think it as I think the Ninth Circuit phrased it as brought you into the fold.
Fourth Circuit, yeah.
Does that sound accurate?
Yeah, Fourth Circuit, yeah.
Okay, would move to admit Disciplinary Counsel Exhibit 18.
Looking at this exhibit, it looks like a summary exhibit for other exhibits. So I just question what the relevance is in light of what Ms. Squillacote just said.
How do you respond? Ms. She questioned the accuracy of that.
Yeah, so this was an admitted exhibit at trial, and certainly we'd move to admit with the understanding that she might not endorse date for date or country by country. What Disciplinary Counsel is faced with here is trying to illuminate the nature and circumstances of the misconduct. And, you know, we had a jury trial, and kind of the best we can do are some of these summary exhibits, unless we were to go through the entire trial transcript, and which is 2,000 pages.
And we don't discount that it was a trial exhibit and it was included in the joint appendix. So we recognize that it's an authentic document.
And so, with any objection, or we can admit it with and give it the, you know, the weight that we accord it, you know. She has testified it may not be completely accurate. I don't know if that was testimony that was given at trial. She didn't testify at trial. Whether her counsel, was this a government exhibit?
Yes, it was, Mr. Chairman.
I'll withdraw the exhibit, and Ms. Squillacote's testimony can be considered in light along with the exhibit itself. That's fine.
You withdraw your objection?
Yes.
Okay, admitted.
Just returning to that trip, that 1979 trip, I'm understanding that it may not have been Germany, or understanding that that's your testimony. That was before you went to law school, correct?
Yes.
1979.
Before we got married.
Okay. And I apologize. I know you testified to this on direct, but when did you get married?
June 1980.
June 1980. Okay. So you also moved to the District of Columbia.
Yes.
Same time, because you went to law school in DC, correct?
Yes.
Now, you told the undercover FBI agent in connection with the sting that this was a very conscious decision, correct?
Yes. I think I did say that.
And I can pull up, if we could pull up Disciplinary Council Exhibit 36. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, sir.
And can you identify it for the committee?
It was the report I wrote to the undercover agent after our first meeting.
And there's, you see the number 1, it says my background. And then if we can
Yes.
magnify the next paragraph that says, I came out to Washington, DC.
Yes.
And that was, and here we see in writing, it says my relocation to Washington, DC was a conscious decision.
Yes.
And I apologize. I think I said very conscious, but here in writing, it says conscious decision.
Yes.
Now, you're sending this to the undercover agent, correct?
Yes. He wanted to, I'm sorry.
As a report, correct?
Yes, he said he wanted a report because his superiors wanted to assess my suitability.
And so conscious decision, in this context, conscious decision in that it would help you be a valuable intelligence asset?
I certainly wanted it to sound that way. In actuality, I had applied to a number of different law schools. I think most of them were not in DC, and DC was the only place I got accepted in. But certainly it was, go and do something important or be something important where there's political activity. I mean, I applied to Madison, I applied to University of Chicago, I applied, I think, elsewhere, and I was not accepted there.
Staying on this passage, it says after my marriage, so married and then moved to DC. Is that an accurate timeline?
Yes.
Okay, so and we talked earlier about how your husband your ex-husband had been working for the HVA since maybe 1972.
73, I think, yes.
72 or 73. Okay. And so he's already working for the HVA at this point.
Yes.
So before the move.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that he had input in the decision to move, or was that something that was maybe all your decision or all his decision?
I don't want to drag you down in a lot of, or the committee members, there was a lot of brouhaha about the wedding. His family vigorously opposed our marriage, tried physically to stop it, did an intervention. It was a very contentious situation. This is 1980. And I understood, and my siblings understood, that Kurt was involved in something. He had this special mission. He was the only one sort of intellectually capable of doing this. And I was essentially from sort of a middle class, bourgeois family, very frivolous, and I would impede his role. and they really opposed our getting married. So the relocation was kind of, I don't know, tied up in that, if you will. We came real close to calling it off, and I had put out various applications to law school, different law schools. I don't know. I'm not trying to evade you, Mr. Perry. I just don't remember that I could say that, well, he was an impetus to moving to DC or not. I don't know. I just don't recall. There was so much other controversy going on then, I just can't recall it.
And may have anticipated what my more specific question, I think you may have anticipated what my more specific question might be, which is, did his desire to advance his work with the HVA factor into the move to DC?
I don't know. Again, I'll tell you another bit of this, and I don't want to overcomplicate this or anything, but you're asking me. He was under a tremendous amount of family pressure. Like his mother's father was at the barricades in the 1980s. You know, he was. It was as if he was a golden boy inheriting this tremendous tradition, right? And he was just so smart and so politically astute in their eyes that he was a light shone on him, right? And he didn't at all necessarily care for this, but he, you know, he wanted to work in rank and file, labor stuff. He wanted to be a so-called worker. But I don't know that he had the, you know, wherewithal or the ability to say to them, I reject this. So there was always this sort of talking out of one side of the mouth and doing something else. And it was something I was very confused by as the years went by. I don't think that helps you. I don't know if that helps you or answers you at all, but that's what was going on. So he had mixed feelings about the whole thing, I guess. He was like, felt under this, I mean, sometimes he would cry about it. It was weird. But that's what it was.
And just to make sure I have a handle on what you're saying, he had mixed feelings about working for the HVA?
He had mixed feelings, gosh, about any of the contact or any of the mission, or, I mean, I don't think he had a clear handle. Gosh, I don't know how to say that. You know, they expected, for example, one of the guys, it's in, I think, the criminal indictment or somewhere, they interview one of the embassy guys later on after all this happens, and they say, well, they expected him to be a think tank employee, right? To get a job at a think tank, like to be a Brookings type guy or something. And that was because that was where his strength was, right? In academic, intellectual, political work. And he, you know, that was the expectation put on him. He eschewed it. I don't know how to answer it other than that. I can only speak from my own firsthand experience with him. He felt weird about it. He pursued it. He met with them. He would talk with them. He would engage in political stuff with them. He would do this training. He took me to meet them. I don't know that it was something that he wholly embraced or adopted. I mean, he seemed very, I don't know, conflicted or something by it, pressured by them.
So your ex-husband, I apologize. Your ex-husband was conflicted, felt conflicted and pressured about working for the HVA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving you a good picture of it. He would go, we would have these meetings outside. There would be all this political talk, and he would feel very important and very, significant. And then we would go back to our regular life, and it was sort of as if it didn't exist. And he didn't, it seemed to me he was very ambivalent about it, and he just felt a tremendous amount of pressure from his parents. Yeah, that was my impression.
Okay, so obviously, from that impression, you were aware that he was kind of going through those thoughts as his spouse at the time.
Yeah.
All right, going back to the timeline so Catholic University Law, you went to Catholic University Law 1980 to 1983?
Correct.
And during the time that you attended Catholic University Law, you took more trips overseas, correct?
I think one in 81 and one in 83.
And those were, at least in part, for purposes of training?
I think in 83, yes.
And the one in 81, if not for training, would it also be for the purpose of talking to HVA contacts or
Yeah,
something of
that was
that
the
nature?
Yes, sir. That was the first time, for instance, I met Zimmer, and it was, I think they had already heard from Kurt's parents that I was not suitable, and I don't know, a punk or something undesirable, and so I think they were assessing me maybe in light of that. I don't know. But I met him once or twice that trip.
Believe that you believe that you met with Zimmer in 1981,
Yes, sir.
and that may have been, you recall that's the first time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so are you also aware that 1981 is the year that HVA records indicated that you had been recruited?
That was certainly the year I met him.
Okay. If we can go to Disciplinary Council Exhibit 19. And you see these are the records again, correct?
Yes, sir.
And try page 48, please. Oh, I think that might be German. Let's try page 50 of Disciplinary Council Exhibit 19.
Yes, sir.
Here we go. So, yeah, if we could just blow up the writing there.
Mr. Perry,
Yes, sir.
can I interrupt? One of our members has a commitment at 4:30, which should take a few minutes. So can we break?
Absolutely.
And maybe we can break for 10 minutes. I think that would probably suffice. So 4:40.
If possible, could I, just for planning purposes, does Mr. Perry, could he provide an estimate of like how much more he anticipates testimony of whether we will likely conclude today or go into tomorrow?
Certainly, if I can just look at my notes real quick, Mr. Chairman. I think I still have a significant amount left. I'm could probably say I'm a third of the way through, a quarter to a third of the way through.
Okay. Okay. Well, accordingly, should we try to decide on a time to finish today, and then we'll just, if we have to continue, Ms. Squillacote, I hope you don't mind
No, sir.
returning for tomorrow.
No, I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Okay. I think we said that this was going to end at 5:30. Initially, we could go to 6, but we'd still be back tomorrow. So I leave it to the parties to decide.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be hesitant to, guarantee I'm, a time I'll be finished like that. I could wrap it up by 6. I mean, I certainly could be
Oh,
within
no,
the
no,
realm.
no, I'm not asking you for that. If you said you were 1/3 complete, we're not going to finish by 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So, but I mean, maybe we should have a time we should shoot for that we're going to conclude for the day, is what I was saying. We could do
So
it 5:30, 6.
I think, I guess my preference, and I don't know about the other parties and the committee, but if we're breaking till 4:45, I mean, we can break for the day, or I could probably go through at 5:30.
Okay.
Either way.
No, is that okay for Ms. Squillacote and Ms. Williams?
Yes, Ms. Squillacote's happy to proceed till 5:30 after the break.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I
Do
will
that,
open up.
see where we are.
I will open up the breakout rooms if you're ready to.
Okay.
Council, could I inquire before we go on the record? This is Carmen. Ms. Squillacote, do you spell Terry Terri?
I don't think she's on the line on the Zoom meeting yet. I think we gotta wait. The breakout rooms are slowly kind of coming back in.
Okay.
They're joining now.
Mr. Chair, I had inquired if Ms. Squillacote spells Terry Terri.
They might not be able to hear us yet, like earlier.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear us?
You can.
Okay.
Oh, this is Carmen. I'm sorry. I wanted to inquire, Ms. Squillacote, do you spell Terry Terri or Terri? Terry.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very
Ma'am,
much.
sorry.
No, thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perry, are you ready to resume?
I am, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
And I just, for the sake of the committee and all parties, I just wanted to point out, as you're aware, Ms. Squillacote is the only witness listed on our witness list. And it may be that we'll be able to resolve everything in cross-examination. Certainly trying to do the best we can in that department, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And so Ms. Squillacote, I think we left off, we were looking at Disciplinary Council Exhibit 19.
Yes.
And here we are at page 50 of this exhibit. You see on there's a top line that says information concerning the agent, and
Yes.
it says code name, I don't know how to say it, Risi or Resi?
Risi, I think.
All right, and that's referring to you, correct?
Yeah, I think it's a diminutive of Theresa. I'm not sure.
And it categorizes you as a developmental agent?
That's what it says, yes.
And under targets 4, it says your target is the US central government, correct?
Yes, that's what it says.
So, and we can take that down. Earlier in your testimony, you testified about violating oaths, correct?
Yes, sir.
And those were oaths you made to your employers, correct?
The United States government and to the Bar Association.
If we can pull up Disciplinary Council Exhibit 20. And if we go to page 2, and this is an appointment affidavit you signed in June 6, 1993, correct?
Yes.
And this is one of the oaths that you were referring to in your testimony?
Yes, sir.
We go to page 3. This again is your signature, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this is from October 1991, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we'll go to page 4. And here we have one from 1983, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And this is in connection with your employment with the National Labor Relations Board, correct?
Yes, sir.
I move to admit Disciplinary Council Exhibit 20.
No objection.
Admitted.
And
Just so we don't lose track, Exhibit 36, you didn't move it, and I don't believe there was. Is that an exhibit you'd like to admit?
thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is, we would move to admit Disciplinary Council Exhibit 36. It
No
referenced
Admitted.
You know, I believe you testified, or I'm not sure, but maybe better said, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, you became involved with the KGB, correct?
Do you mean when I began the personal relationship with Zimmer, the affair? Is that what you were asking about?
Not the timeline on the affair, just a factual question. Did you become involved in work for the KGB? After
Oh, the KGB. Oh, I'm sorry. I knew after the fall, 90 or 91, that Zimmer had developed a contact in the KGB. Yeah, I never, spoke or dealt with the person, but I knew Lothar had.
And you talked to the undercover agent about this, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we can pull up Disciplinary Council Exhibit 34. And do you recognize this document?
Oh, yes, it's the transcript of my first meeting with the undercover agent.
And if we can go to Bates number 70, please. And towards the bottom, the largest paragraph, these are statements you're making to the agent, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're talking about, you are talking about Lothar here, correct?
Yes.
And that he was trying to build a KGB home for himself?
Yes.
And that he was maintaining, it says a number of us.
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I say. I'm not sure exactly what I'm referring to, but that's definitely what I said.
Well, you did travel to meet with Lothar during this period, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And you, Lothar and others did communicate with the KGB by exchanging memory cards on a Casio digital diaries, correct?
I didn't. I heard that Lothar did that, and I heard that Clark did that, but I didn't, and I don't believe Kurt did. So the only digital card we transferred was from Lothar.
So you're saying that the only communication you did with a digital diary was with Lothar?
Correct.
Okay, and that did occur during the time he was communicating with the KGB via the
Yes,
same mechanism?
Yes, I believe that to be the case.
So we looked at those appointment affidavits and just kind of getting us back to a timeline. In the 1980s, you were working for the National Labor Relations Board, correct?
Yes.
Was it starting 83?
May 83, yes.
And there came a time while you were working for the National Labor Relations Board that type of employment was not in the best direction in terms of your efforts to work for the HVA, correct?
Correct.
And if we go back to Disciplinary Council Exhibit 36. And if, let's see, under my background, not the first, but the second paragraph.
Yes, sir.
And again, this is a letter to the undercover agent, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you talk about, you began to examine how I could move my professional work more in line with the commitments that I had made, correct?
Yes, yes.
And that the commitment is the commitment to work for the HVA, correct?
Yes, to support yes.
We can take that down. And so part of looking for work more in line with your commitment, part of that was to gain a master's in law in government contract law, correct?
Could you repeat that, Mr. Perry?
Sure. A part of kind of looking to better honor your commitment to the HVA was obtaining an LLM in government contract law, correct?
I think, yes, certainly in part.
And you're aware that the Fourth Circuit decision states that you went to law school at the HVA's suggestion, correct?
Yes. Actually, as I sit here, I don't remember that sentence from the decision, but if you say it's in it, then it's in it.
Well, is that an accurate statement?
I think I might have made clear, I mean, I think it was sort of foreordained that I was going to go to law school. I could never have met Kurt or these people, and I still would have ended up in law school because it was sort of imprinted on me by my dad. So I don't think that law school as such was a commitment to the HVA.
Well, I'm talking about the, just to be clear, first, that the HVA suggested that you go to law school, and I'm referencing for your LLM.
Oh, for my LLM. No, I don't think it was per them. I think it was per me in this sense. I knew that I had to move on. I knew that I had to matriculate. I knew that a large part of that was to address these commitments I had made. And I thought that getting the LLM and procurement law would make me more mobile. I guess that's the more mobile, better able to move around.
So
It certainly wasn't something they suggested because they wouldn't have known about it as such. And the thing they really pushed, I think I mentioned, was congressional work.
let me take you to Disciplinary Council Exhibit 47. Do you recognize this document?
Yes, it's Agent Elliman's affidavit in support of the arrest warrant. Arrest warrant? Yes.
And this affidavit, it's in support of, your arrest as well as the arrest of Mr. Clark and Mr. Stand, correct?
Correct.
And if I could take you to page 33 of this document. And this is just for context of the next page that we go to. You see here, it says heading 5, communications between the GDR Embassy and GDR Intelligence Service concerning
Yes.
defendants Clark, Squillacote, and Stand.
Yes.
And you see in the paragraph 86, the agent is talking about reviewing materials that contain the substance of a number of communications between GDR Intelligence, East Germany Intelligence, at the GDR Embassy in Washington, and the MFS Center, correct?
Correct.
And that MFS Center, that's East German Intelligence, correct?
I think it's the Stasi Center office of which HVA was a part, something like that.
So if we can now go to Disciplinary Council, I'm sorry, if we can now just go to page 44 of that exhibit. And you see if we can enlarge paragraph 111.
Yes,
And this is talking about a September 19th, 1988 communication, correct?
yes,
And it's talking about telephone contact with Tina Squillacote.
correct.
And Tina was another false name that you used?
That was assigned to me, I think, not that I used, that they used, just reference me.
And about halfway down here, you see a sentence that talks about the report also makes reference to a previous communication from Tina. I informed Tina that her detailed letter was received with great joy and that there is also great joy over the start of her successful studies.
Yes,
And this is September 19th, 1988. Correct?
yes,
So
yes,
that coincides with the start of your LLM studies, correct?
yes, I believe so.
And we could take that down. Now, in addition to furthering your legal education, you approached the general counsel of the House Armed Services Committee to see if you could do legal work for credit, to gain graduate credit, correct?
I approached him for an internship. I don't remember if it was for credit or not. As I said, I approached a number of members of Congress. I think it might have just been for an internship. I don't remember whether it was for asking for academic credit or not. I don't remember.
Before we go on, did we want to move in exhibit 47?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I had them bunched in my notes. I'm forgetting to do them one at a time. Could disciplinary council moves disciplinary council exhibit 47?
Council?
No objection. My pause is because this is a 200-page document. We've only looked at a couple pages, but no objection.
Admitted.
I'm sorry, did we look at 34 before that? Was 34 admitted?
34 was not admitted.
Okay, then I think in my notes, I think we forgot to do that one too.
So we
No
would
objection to 34.
Admitted.
In my records, 19 is pending as well for reconciling, unless I missed it.
say that again? I'm sorry, counsel.
I don't believe exhibit 19 was moved in or moved for admission, but I'm happy if someone else's records indicate otherwise.
I had 19 as admitted.
I agree. I don't have 19 as admitted. Unless,
Why don't we just offer it?
So I'll move.
Sure, if it's in twice.
We'll move disciplinary council exhibit 19 is the HVA records that we've looked at.
right,
No objection.
admitted.
Okay, Ms. Squillacote, so
Yes, sir.
you did approach the House Armed Services Committee, and you can't recall if that was connected to the LLM program or not?
I knew it was for an internship. I just can't remember if I was asking for academic credit or not. I knew I was asking for some type of position or connection, as I said, to any multiple members of Congress.
Okay, so setting aside whether or not there was credit, it was connected to the LLM program.
Again, I'm not sure, Mr. Perry. I think it was just, can I have an internship here? I don't know that it was, I think it was more like I need to gain some additional credentials. I just don't recall that it was directly connected to the LLM. I'm sorry.
Lothar congratulated you on this internship via one of
Yes.
the Casio RAM cards. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if we can go to Disciplinary Council Exhibit 51. And we'll go, we could go to Bates 2 of this document. And on the, first, I should say, you understand that this is essentially the text pulled off one of those Casio RAM cards, correct?
Yes, sir.
And this was a message from Lothar to you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if we can enlarge the second paragraph. And it states it was very clever and courageous how you got the internship at your uncle's office.
Yes.
Right. And he's thanking you for details of hearings.
He says, thank you for the details of the hearing. That was your first intern. He means internal political information. And it was referencing a hearing I sat in and what different members thought about I think it was the Gulf War at the time, authorization. It wasn't classified. I was just discussing what they thought. And he characterized that as internal political information.
Your first internal political information.
Mr. Perry, could you repeat that? I think it got garbled.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I just stated testimony that he classified it as the first.
It's not
internal.
getting any better.
Sorry, yeah, I'm not hearing you, Mr. Perry.
Can I offer maybe just something that we could try? When we've noticed that when we are in the breakout rooms, we don't appear to have any audio problems, but when we come back into the room, could we just make sure that everybody is on mute? And if there's any way on the conference room setup that anybody who's in the conference room that's not participating can make sure that they are in mute so that there's not audio interference. Is that possible, or not based on the setup that we can't?
In the conference room we're in, the audio is off all of the laptops, so there's not cross feedback.
Okay.
Mr. Perry, let's try it again. Okay?
Can you hear me now?
Not so much. Try it again. Let's see.
How about now?
Yeah.
That better?
Yes.
Okay, apologize. Okay, so I believe we left off. Council inquired of what I was just saying, and I believe I was just restating testimony regarding congratulations for your first internal political information. Just confirming testimony that Ms. Squillacote understands that intern political information may have meant internal.
Yes, I'm virtually certain that's what he would have meant by that.
Okay.
And I remember what he was referring to.
And if we could go to paragraph 3, one paragraph below this one. And starting from the bottom 3 lines up, this is Lothar to you saying, you should continue to focus all your efforts on the procurement field at DOD. Also, a position in the congressional staff would be excellent.
Yes.
Correct. So here you have your HVA handler encouraging you to continue in the procurement field, correct?
Yes, that would be consistent. It was something that I initiated, But it would certainly be consistent. The thing they mostly pushed was the second sentence there.
And this was while you were studying government contracts at GW, correct?
From the beginning, that was something that got pushed. Congressional staff, that got pushed consistently.
But my question is, this message is sent to you while you're studying government contract
Yes,
procurement at GW.
yes.
So disciplinary council would move to admit exhibit 51.
No objection.
Admitted.
So in 1991, you obtained permanent, well, not permanent, you obtained, as opposed to an internship, permanent position with the Department of Defense, correct?
The Defense Systems Management College, yes.
And that was as an attorney, correct?
Yes, I think that was an attorney slot.
And you eventually became the Director of Legislative Affairs for the office, is that correct?
It was sort of two separate things. The Defense System Management College was this blue ribbon panel to study the acquisition laws and produce a report on reforming the acquisition statutes. And that had been sort of the outgrowth of that small job I had done with Colleen, the small internship. And then once that got finished, gosh, I think I went back to, I don't remember, but at that point, I think she had set up her office, which was acquisition reform. And at that point, then she wanted to hire me because they were going to be implementing that report, right? Going about the business of following up on that big report.
The position.
Sorry, I didn't hear your question, Mr. Perry.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Mr. Chairman, would the committee prefer if I try to get this audio, we break here and I try to get this audio issue resolved?
It's okay with me. We're gonna recess until tomorrow anyway. So, Ms. Williams, do you have any objection or problem with that?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
If maybe Ms. Williams could, and us could stay on the line and we could see if we could, I do think I've run into this issue before and it just might be a technology interference. I just want to try a couple troubleshooting options, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Before we recess, we'll recess until tomorrow at 9:30. And Ms. Williams, how many additional witnesses do you plan on calling tomorrow?
We have 3 witnesses.
Could you tell me who they are?
Yes, so we have Rosa Squillacote, Felix Cologne, and Michael Tiger.
Okay. And Mr. O'Brien, is it your understanding that Ms. Squillacote will be your only witness?
As of right now, that is what we're working towards. I think, you know, I am not disciplinary counsel. At a certain point at the close of the petitioner's case, I think Mr. Perry and I are going to have to talk internally with the office to make sure based on whatever evidence is proffered in petitioner's case, how we want to move forward. But that is, I can say that is the idea.
Okay, that's fair. We have one housekeeping matter to attend to. One of the hearing committee members has a doctor's appointment and she'll be gone for approximately 2 hours. We could continue the proceedings. She will be on her phone and after she can review the, on YouTube, any testimony. So I pose it to you, if both sides have no objections to that, we'll just continue. Or we can recess for 2 hours. What's your feeling?
No objection from disciplinary council.
Ms. Williams?
No objection. We're happy to do whatever the committee member prefers
Okay.
as far as reviewing the testimony.
That's fine, and we'll make sure, you know, all the testimony is reviewed, and she'll be on the phones for most of it, so. Is there anything else before we adjourn for the day? And hopefully, Mr. O'Brien, your AV skills will come into play here.
I also just want to point out.
On that point, I'm gonna have to, oh, that might have been her.
Oh, this is Megan. Yes, I will be staying on after you, with you all, to make sure you can get it figured out. I also want to point out that the link for the Zoom will remain the same for tomorrow. So just want to point that out.
Great. Okay, well, all have a good night, and we'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.